you ever ran into a scenario where you can't turn a law firm operation into a sellable asset?
With the right time and the right, approach, meaning owner is ready to do this? Absolutely not, right? It's just what happens, and you and I probably know this, is most don't give themselves enough time. We just closed out a year and we get a lot of, people that come to us in January and say, hey, I'm ready to exit my practice end of this year, right? So they've chosen this is the year to retire or exit. And for some practices, it can work. And for others, they just need more time. So yeah, it's the biggest thing when we talk about like succession planning or, planning for your exit. Everybody says, well, when should I start doing it? Your question is a perfect analysis of if you don't have a plan right now, like start planning for your exit now. It doesn't mean you're exiting in 3 to 5 years or 10 years or 15, but you need to know if your practice has value, what that value is, and how it's situated for that potential exit or sale. What are your options? Because that's strategic value.
Welcome to the CSG Law Firm Podcast, where we talk all things law firm finance, operations, strategies, and feature those who have dared to embrace bold changes in the legal landscape. I'm your host, Chelsea Williams, founder of Core Solutions Group and chief financial architect for law firms since 2017. I get the rare glimpse behind the curtain and into operations, mindset, and money habits that make or break law firms. Since COVID, everything we thought we knew about how law firms should run, look, and feel have been shattered. And out of that disruption, a new kind of law firm owner has emerged, one who's bold enough to build outside the box. Around here, we spotlight those renegades, owners who blend legal brilliance with real business strategy, who build boldly, think creatively, and know that money isn't just math, it's mindset. We don't shy away from hard truths. We lean in with curiosity, grit, and a little humor. Whether you're scaling, stabilizing, or just trying to stay sane, you'll find stories, strategies, and straight talk to help you run a more profitable, value-driven law firm. So grab your coffee or your case files and let's get into it. Because it's time to ditch the stuffy suits and take control of your cash flow, build something bold, and prioritize protecting profits in your pocket. I'm really looking forward to this conversation on the Law Firm Money Matters podcast because let's start with Tom. What do? You tell them why they should be excited to listen to this episode.
Yeah, I think they should be excited because maybe this is the episode that it finally hits that all the work, all the effort they're putting into, all the time, Chelsea, they spend with you and your team of building better, right? Is actually there's value at the end of the rainbow, right? There's truly that pot of gold where if you build a good law firm, that is a good business model. There's an exit value. And you should be excited about that. It's not just building something that's providing you with income on a daily, but really you're building something that's an asset that has value, that at some point in time when you're ready to step away, you can do that. And I think the other part of where they should be excited is they're looking for growth than acquisition. There's lots of attorneys and boomers out there right now looking for that next generation buyer. So if you're a good business operator that runs a good law firm, look for those opportunities in the market because there's revenues, clients otherwise that are looking for new homes. And there's senior attorneys that are looking for their succession plan. So hopefully we can talk about both. But I think it's an exciting part to really get that mentality shift for a lot of law firm owners that it's not just about what you're pulling out today. It's really about building a better business that has an exit value or growing through acquisition and kind of, doubling your revenues overnight.
I cannot wait. I'm so excited for this conversation because I talk to law firm owners all the time. And I think you hit it on the head. I think there's three things we need to talk about today. Number one, the mindset shift that has to happen. Because in my experience, so many people aren't even aware of, hey, I should be building this thing to sell.
Right.
Like it's even an option. So many of us as entrepreneurs are just closing our doors and being like, go find somebody else. I'm out. I'm done. I get so many calls of like, my CPA retired. And so now I'm finding somebody else. And so I think the mindset shift for sure, the like what creates value so that when you go to sell, the value is there. And then growth by acquisition. I love all of those things. Let's start with mindset. How do we create that shift for law firm owners? What do they need to hear?
Yeah, I think the mindset really becomes that you're a lawyer, if you're a law firm owner, right? That is a business, right? Just like If you're going to go out and buy a house or anything else, right, you're going to make sure you invest in that house, and your full expectation is when I'm ready to sell and move out of my house, I am going to get value for that. And I'll tell you, Chelsea, I mean, I've been at this since 2013, and I've had lots of conversations, especially in the early years, of lawyers that would come and say, my practice doesn't have value. And then we'd really have to walk through of why it has value, how to exit and transition that value. And I think as you go through that shift with the expectation of, yeah, I'm putting in a lot of work. I put in a lot of money. I put in a lot of time and effort, more so than my house. And that law firm may surprise you on what the value could be or what it is today. And really, the marketplace has built a tremendous amount over the last decade and is building even more as private equity moves into the space and all these different players. And so, the overall aspect is you should be proud. Your personal professional legacy as a law firm owner is more than just your individual work. It truly is the business that you've created. So, I think that's really the mentality is it's an asset. And it's an asset you can choose what to do with and how to monetize it and carry it forward.
I think you said that really, really well. And I think out of everything you said and the conversations that I have with law firm owners, what they need to hear the most is you are building a business. And especially those solopreneurs.
Yes.
It law school very much gives you what it was meant to give you. What it doesn't give you anything of is how to run a business, not just practicing law, but building a business. And I think, especially for the solos, they're very much, or even I've seen this too. Tell me your experience. I will work with firm owners who are practicing in a very niche, specialized area. And there's that mentality of, I can't be replaced. Nobody can
Right.
do what I do.
Sure. Yeah, and as I tell lawyers, every law firm, every lawyer is unique. I mean, truly, right? There's a uniqueness to all of us, but there is a replacement, what I'll call a transition plan that can make it happen. Some are easier than others, openly, right? Some are easier than others. We've run into a lot where, based on expertise, based on that really awesome niche you have, it's just a little bit tougher to find who that successor is going to be, or it's going to take a little bit longer, to transition. But everybody can move. It's just giving yourself enough time, having the right, approach and kind of open-mindedness to really take those next steps. I think the hardest part is for lawyers, and when we talk about mentality, is we'd like to think of all the reasons why we can't do things, right? I mean, that's the overall joke. I mean, as a lawyer, I can tell you in law school, they start out and you read case law with bad facts that create case law, right? And then you get into practice, and we have clients that come to us that say, hey, this is what happened, help me, right? Or keep me away from this trouble. And so we're always focused on here's the situation. Why is it not going to work? What's going to go wrong? And I think that's the challenge for so many law firm owners. Chelsea, I'm sure you see this too. When there's an opportunity present, maybe there's an opportunity, but my practice probably isn't right for that opportunity. I can't go down that path because of this or because of that. But what we really need to look for as law firm owners is it is an opportunity, and how do we make it work? Because that's what we've been doing for almost 15 years is looking at that uniqueness and then saying, great, these type of buyers are off the table for you openly. Like those aren't going to work, but these over here all work for you. We just got to go find them and develop the right transition plan and to carry that forward. And we love turning doubters into believers. I mean, that's the best. Like when we're done and we've closed and gone through that, and I'm sure you're in the same boat, it's, those are like come to us and like, I don't think my practice is sellable. And then at the end, when it's closed and they're happy and they're excited, they're like, wow, you really proved me wrong. Like, that's great because that means the education piece and we delivered when they really had those fears, those objections, those concerns early on. So,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's like that. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. We will always find truth or proof to support what we are telling ourselves in our head. Whether
sure.
it's can or can't, we will see proof. And so I guess here's the ultimate question to like squash any doubt of any listener that's still in their head being like, yeah, okay, Tom, okay, but like still not me. Have you ever ran into a scenario where you can't turn a law firm operation into a sellable asset?
With the right time and the right, approach, meaning owner is ready to do this? Absolutely not, right? It's just what happens, and you and I probably know this, is most don't give themselves enough time. We just closed out a year and we get a lot of, people that come to us in January and say, hey, I'm ready to exit my practice end of this year, right? So they've chosen this is the year to retire or exit. And for some practices, it can work. And for others, they just need more time. So yeah, it's the biggest thing when we talk about like succession planning or, planning for your exit. Everybody says, well, when should I start doing it? Your question is a perfect analysis of if you don't have a plan right now, like start planning for your exit now. It doesn't mean you're exiting in 3 to 5 years or 10 years or 15, but you need to know if your practice has value, what that value is, and how it's situated for that potential exit or sale. What are your options? Because that's strategic value. In our world, it is because then oh, I have some work to do to create it into a more valuable practice or a more sellable practice or an easier to transition practice. And I think a lot of that too, when we talk about mentality, like shifting the mentality, so many of our senior attorneys, for a lot of them, are afraid to retire because they're so tied to their identity as a lawyer. But when you
Mm,
focus on moving to legacy preservation, succession planning, monetizing that, the really cool part about it is there is an exciting opportunity there, right? It's not just about passing the keys to somebody. It's about controlling how your legacy, your firm is going to be passed. The baton is going to be passed to the next person. You get to choose that person if you take control. You get to stay on for as long as you want, right, to practice as a lawyer. But overall, it's exciting to move towards something and to see your firm continue and thrive, hopefully, with the next generation versus just winding it down and hanging it up or having some, unexpected life event take you in a different direction.
yeah. Yeah. So we just heard it. There is absolutely no scenario where you can't create a sellable law business. And the question is, and this is a valid question, like how much time does that take? So I think this is a good transition into the second piece of today's conversation, which is how do we create value? How long should we expect that take? What are the variables? How do we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talk about to everybody like value in a law firm really comes down to three components. One, and Chelsea, you'll love this one, is EBITDA, right? Your financials, right? And so when we talk about EBITDA, really what we're talking about is how much cash as an owner do bring home after paying yourself, paying everybody else, right? Normalize it, no perks, anything else, but really a normalized like owner's benefit. This is what I bring home after, paying everybody, including myself, for the work I do, which is the challenge. So the financials, but it can also be if you're in a plaintiff practice, case inventory, if you're in a subscription, estate planning practice, it might be future revenue, kind of accounts receivable. All that goes into kind of financials, right? So the healthier, the stronger, the bigger your financials are, probably the more value you're going to have, right? You start driving up there and everything else. But the other component is really your intellectual property, which what I'll say is it's your brand. It is your uniqueness, right? And it's really how hard is it for somebody to come in and just replace what you just did, right? And so Chelsea, you were saying, earlier about those very niche practices. If they're niche and they have a lot of expertise and it's really hard to get into that space and learn that and to win those clients over and referrals, that actually has a very high value driver because it's hard for somebody else to come into that and just walk in and take it over, right? And also, if you've got a great website, great brand, community presence, network, whatever else, that's all part of that intellectual property piece too, because it's hard for somebody to come in and just do that right away, right? So when we talk about building value, financial strength, having the financial data, right, having the good margins, having good cash flow, part one. Part two is really how unique and how wonderful is your practice and different from others where it's really hard for somebody else just to replicate that quickly, right? Build business brand and value and uniqueness and really hold that and make that what it is because another outsider is going to want to buy that, right? Because you've done that from that. And the third piece, which is probably one of the toughest things for lawyers, is really systems. And when we talk about systems, right, Chelsea, we're going to talk about financial systems. We're going to talk about data, right? But a lot of it is just how the firm, the business, runs day to day, potentially with you as the owner, how you would go through and analyze that. And so, Chelsea, I'm sure this is like your dream too, is to get every owner to a place where, they can have this monitor over here or this monitor, and there's, data and they're tracking, but they're not having to be in everything, right? And so that concept alone is if you're the go-to and everything is going through you as the owner, it's really tough, on a buyer to see how they're just going to step in easily and take that over, right? So systems, I really come down to it's attraction, the book traction concept of like delegate. The more that you can move things off your plate as an owner to the people or to systems, right? And those systems, we have basic systems that have transferred in value, which are like, yellow legal pad checklists, right? That have been used over and over again. And we have, law firm owners, as you've seen, Chelsea, that create their own software, right? And kind of carry that forward. So from everything, but the overall goal is how do you as an owner really separate yourself from the business? That if you were going to go off, Chelsea and I were talking about one of my teammates off in Japan on a trip. If you were going to go to Japan for a week, how is the firm going to run without you? And
Mm.
if you can paint that picture, a buyer is going to be really excited about it because they're going to see it as, yes, you're a lawyer that owns this firm, but it's a business that can run, without you and you can transition over. So three components to really driving value: financials, financial strength, going through that overall, your uniqueness, your brand, your network, what you've built that is unique compared to others. And the third is systems and how easily the firm can be transitioned or run without you as the owner.
Oh, all of these. So I used to watch all of the shows, Bar, what is it called? Bar, where he like restaurant save or saves the restaurant,
Oh yeah.
bar
Yeah.
rescue, restaurant rescue, hotel rescue, The Prophet on MSNBC, Marcus Lemonis. I used to watch all of these shows, and what every single one of them had in common was that, and Marcus Lemonis summed it up for me. He said, people don't buy businesses, people buy systems. Nobody wants to buy a job. And I think that, like your third systems, that's what came up. That's the phrase that came to mind when you said, when you were describing that. So if you are listening right now, think about your firm and think about if someone was to come in and replace you, what do they have to do that? And also, what are they committing to? Because nobody wants to buy a 60-hour a week job where they have to like just extract things out of your brain because it's not in a written process or procedure.
I mean, for me, Chelsea, the whole concept for law practice exchange, again, almost 15 years ago, I was a practicing attorney. My firm was growing. I was adding associates. I had left a big firm because there was no succession planning. But I read a book called Built to Sell. And I don't know if you've ever read it with John Warlow. And that is like it's this big, right? The book's tiny, but the overall, concept is if you don't have systems and you really don't have that, true vision and go through that, you have a job and you can definitely go and transfer your book of business to somebody else and get compensated for it and everything else. But overall, you haven't really built a business. You've built that book and you can kind of align and join of counsel or go and merge with somebody to do that. But if you really want to build a business and maximize your value and see how that goes, it is all about systems, right? It truly is about having that and just going through systems, and it's hard for lawyers. I get it. It's hard for lawyers who like to control and carry that forward. But once you do it and go through it, it's so freeing. And once you tell that story to a potential buyer or successor for your firm and how you have systems, I mean, they get excited. They get motivated. They get more comfortable with the risk of purchase and succession and everything else because they can really see how they could take over the firm. When all the systems are right up here, it's a lot tougher for them to feel good about, okay, so I'm going to pay you this money and like will start to teach me for the next, 6, 12 months So it's a lot harder sell under those approaches.
Yeah. Yeah. And, not even for just when you go to sell, but like you said, one of the best tests that I love, coaches do this a lot to clients that they're coaching. They're like, we're going to do a test. You're going to go on vacation for 2 weeks and you're not going to answer anybody's anything. And the whole point is you pull yourself away to watch what breaks. So it's not if, but when something breaks, so that you know exactly what you need to do, which systems you need to put into place so that when we do it again 3 months later, we'll see now what breaks. It's like they're almost stepping back to see what breaks on purpose so that they can then go in and install a system to patch it and keep it running while they're out. And then you mentioned traction. That's one of what I think it's over here on my screen. It's right there, that red one right there, right? That's one of what I refer to as my business Bibles. Do you have any other books that are really good for this?
Well, I do like Built to Sell because we talk about mentality, and I think that's a great book. It's been around for 20 plus years, whatever else. John Warrell was, ahead of it on that side, but it's really good on mentality of just, it doesn't have to be huge. When we talk about systems, I think a lot of lawyers are like, okay, here we go again, right? A lot of money, a lot of time, but it doesn't have to be that complex, right? You can start basic and kind of go from there. As far as other books that I have, I mean, Profit First is a big one for me, right? Of course. So that's a good one, right? From that
Winner.
standpoint. I'm a big believer in some other ones, but let's see. I was just gonna try to grab. No, I've got Good to Great too, which is a good succession planning book. You got that one over there too? Yeah. So a lot of the core concepts, I can give you my full rundown of my library here that I would, pull and go to. But I think the biggest thing on so many of these, when you do get to a good reference or a good book, it really helps as a guide, but it also empowers you to say, okay, I can do it, right? Because I do think that's a big challenge and why the coaches force you to do that, right, Chelsea, is because it's like, no way do I want to do that. I don't want anything to break. And they're like, sure, because nothing's perfect. And even when like a little bit breaks, you come back and fix that. The next time you go, something else is going to break. It's okay. Nobody has it all figured out in business. Would you agree? Like nobody has it all figured
Absolutely.
out. And so there is no perfection. All there is trying. And the biggest thing is to have, some education, some motivation to really go and start trying to, build this better business, which is why people work with you and your team and hopefully, build that up. But it's okay to fail. It's okay to not get perfection on it, which is hard for lawyers, right? We like to have everything, perfect and carry
Just
that forward.
so.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think it's a big affirmation that you and I are both referencing the same books. The only two books that I would add, because I had the same exact books on my list, would be Atomic Habits,
Mhm.
because that's exactly what it takes as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a leader to get to where you want to go. Because success doesn't happen overnight. And if it did, I would be scared because what comes quick leaves quicker. Success is what happens over time because of the things that we do day in and day out. So Atomic Habits is one that I would add to the list, as well as the E-Myth
Yeah,
Revisited,
great
the
book.
E-Myth
Yeah.
Revisited. That book does, especially because of the mentality of lawyers, the E-Myth really helps you step outside and see these are the different mindsets that you have to graduate to in your business. And it does a great job of, framing it all for them. So those are, I love that, all of those books. And, you mentioned the financial systems. So I'm going to give myself a plug here. Our CFO programs work so well. We have a lot of clients that are working with people like you. They're 3 to 5 to 7 years out in selling their firm. And so they work with us under one of our CFO programs to systematize their finance. Because just like Profit First outlines, if you're listening and you haven't heard of that, you must go put it like pause right now, put it in your Amazon cart and get it shipped to your house before you press play again. But it systematically protects and prioritizes profit. And there's absolutely a way to do it because nobody wants to buy a broke business either. And
Yep.
so I really appreciate all three of yours: the EBITDA, your financial strengths and systems, the systems itself everywhere, and brand uniqueness. And to me, like that really sets you apart because isn't that essentially like how you attract your clients repeatedly? Like, why you? what is your there's a word for it. Your unique factor.
Yeah, and I think, the overarching aspect is that's always, the challenge, right? I mean, I think Chelsea, you and I discussed, we just recently launched a law firm like value estimator, right, at the lawpracticeexchange.com that you can go to and just get a range, right? It's kind of what I tell everybody, it's to give that mentality shift, hopefully, right? Of like, oh wow, like either I've got some work to do, or wow, that's really exciting and it's cool to know that and I can continue to work on it. And then, of course, we do full valuations for everybody. But I do think like that uniqueness is the hardest part because it also couples with what we see in the market and everything else, right? Like what's moving right now. Sometimes, as you mentioned, uniqueness can be hard, right? It can be like, oh, I'm really niche, I'm really expert. How do I find this next successor to do what I do? And that could be a challenge, which kind of limits things a little bit. But usually I love it. I mean, uniqueness, when people come, they're like, wow, I've got a very unique, and you're like, wow, you built something that's, a buyer's going to get very excited about if you have the other things, right? You have the financials, you have the systems, whatever else, like that's really cool. So I encourage, of course, lawyers as you would to like keep doing what you're doing. Like, lawyers are creative as hell, which I love. And of course, they're always trying to create other things, right? Like I've got a new deal over here that I want to create. But at the end of it, it's like, use that creativity, whatever else, use your legacy that you've built on and continue to do that. And then just focus on these other things, which is financial and data. Yeah, I kind of touched on data, but like financial data is a big deal, but data across the board, the first question most buyers are going to ask a seller is where do your clients come from? And if you don't know, that's probably a good exercise to go through of like, well, I mean, for the last 40 years, I've just been doing this, then they just keep coming, but starting to track where clients are referred from or how they come to you or anything else. But I know, Chelsea, that's a lot of what you work with clients on and building that better predictive model, everything else. And so it's huge. It'll drive, better valuations and really just more enjoyable successions or sales or exits when they get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what really sets us apart in our fractional CFO programs. We're not just looking at the financial data. What I have come to understand doing what I do for almost 20 years now is that money is just a fractal. If you know how to understand money and read money, you can see into every facet of the business. So in both of our programs, we take it 2 layers out. And as part of the program, we are setting up to collect and report KPIs in marketing, in conversions, in sales, in onboarding, in production, and in post client nurturing. So we're hitting like all of the departments. And we've actually incorporated into week 1 of our Profit Ready 8-week group program your free evaluation.
All right.
Yes. So
Motivation, right? It's
evaluation, yes.
motivator. Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love it so much that I've actually plugged it into my program because that's a really good, like you said, it's like, okay, I'm here. Because let's be honest, as business owners, we think that our business is worth more than it actually is in real life. And that's just how more often than not it happens. And so to have this measuring point of here's where I'm at now, here's what I would like to sell it for, here's what I have to do from now to then to get it to that point, to sell is incredibly powerful. So again, if this is all ringing a bell for you and you think that, money is a great place to start. It shows us every other area of our business. Check out our website, yourcoresolution.com. Look for our Profit Ready and Fractional CFO programs. Check them out. You built the law firm. So why does your bank account still feel like a crime scene? You're making money, but somehow there's none left. You're working your tail off, bringing in the revenue, paying everybody else, but still wondering, where the hell did it all go? That's not a you problem. That's a systems problem. Most law firm owners are stuck in a financial fog. Messy books, unclear reports, random spending, no cash plan, and way too much going on. More revenue is not always the answer. Because if your money is leaking, more revenue just means a bigger mess. Profit Ready teaches you the equation that actually matters. The money you make minus the money you spend equals the money you keep. And spoiler alert, the part you keep, that's the whole point. Profit Ready is the step-by-step program for law firm owners who are done winging it and ready to run their business like a CEO using numbers as their guide. You'll learn how to clean up the foundation, understand your numbers, control cash flow, track the right KPIs, build the right financial team, and create a real plan to grow to 1 million, 3 million, and beyond without burning the whole thing down. Because right now, a lot of law firm owners are self-employed inside a very expensive job. Profit Ready helps you step into the CEO seat with clarity, confidence, and a plan. This is for you if your firm makes money, but you don't feel it. If your reports are late, messy, or ignored. If tax bills keep sneaking up on you like a raccoon with a knife. And if you know your firm has more potential than what your bank account is showing. You don't need more financial mumbo jumbo. You need a system. You need clarity. You need Profit Ready. Let's stop guessing. Let's stop leaking money. Let's get you paid. And so then we've talked about the perspective shift that has to happen. We've talked about how to establish value from the perception of a potential buyer. What about those that are looking to grow by acquisition? And I love this conversation because I work with a lot of clients who are fighting and struggling to get their law firm to grow. And in a lot of cases, it's growing organically by itself. It's just not fast enough. And so they get really frustrated. I'm like, well, hey, why don't we just go buy profits and add it to your portfolio? So what does that look like, Tom?
Yeah, I think that's the big question. And again, it's always, are those buyers from a buy side? You always want to make sure your house is in order, right? So I mean, that's the great part, Chelsea, is when they're working with you, your team, everything else, it's like they're doing the right things. It's just time, right? Time to kind of grow everything else. So if they've got better systems, if they've built this and they're in a practice area, either through geographic expansion or whatever else, go be the succession plan for one of those practices, right? And, there's all questions about this, anything else, but, we have, I think, almost 500 comps of law firm transactions and values and everything else over the years of seeing that success, the roadmap of how to do it the right way and carry that forward. But we see firms go from, again, 500,000 to, 1.5, 2 million in revenues overnight. You just got to be ready for it. I mean, that's the big thing of where we try to connect with good advisors like yourself when buyers come in and say, hey, I want to buy. If you're not ready, you need that advisory team around you to make sure you can successfully do it, right? And so part of that is making sure your systems as a buyer, right? Your financials, your data, your other stuff is right. But I think the biggest thing is there are great law firms out there, great lawyers that want to preserve their legacy, and we need more qualified, good buyers. Truly. There is, more and more buyers moving, but more that really have said, I've built this. I would love to expand. I would love to grow and do it in the right way. Because even if they're not, 70-year-old attorneys, surprisingly, there's a lot of 40-year-old attorneys out there that are looking for an exit to go a different path that have built million-dollar, revenue practices. They just need a financial exit so they can go to move on to that next thing. They're going to be a software person. They're going to go in-house over here. They've got an opportunity to go be a judge. All of these different things are available, but the overall goal is have the plan for how it would really fit. So when we talk, Chelsea, and I'm sure you probably counseled some clients through this as well, we have some that get very excited about buying because of the revenue and financial opportunity. But it really comes down to what is your strategic plan for growth and how does it really fit? So we have, some come in and say, I run an estate planning practice. I'm open to, family law. I'm open to real estate. I'm open to this, wherever that you can find it in this geographic footprint. Why those areas? Well, just because I'm looking for revenue. Well, if you're looking for revenue, then find it in estate planning first because you know that world, right? You've built systems for that world versus trying to really consume and everything else. If part of your play is diversification, then sure, maybe you want to look at some of those other areas. But it's really, we try to coach buyers, really focus in, especially for first acquisition, really focus in on what makes the most sense and the easiest sense, and then be patient, right? Like of finding the right one versus jumping and breaking your rules just to close on something. Because if you've built a great estate planning practice or a great real estate or family law, and you go out and consume another, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million in revenue, you can do that a lot more successfully than trying to learn a new practice area, train your team on a new practice area, everything else. And so really focusing in on strategic acquisition criteria. What makes the most sense? What fit are you looking for? And then, use all the tentacles out there to find it, but be patient while you look for that right one as well.
Mm, I love that. So you kind of covered when to buy, and it sounds like when your foundation is solid. And I could totally see that happening. That's like when I tell people that their profit equation, that's my term for how much money you're keeping to then save and invest in your business, because most people are at a net zero profit equation. But when I run up against somebody that has a net zero or a negative profit equation, they're like, I just need more revenue. More revenue will solve my problems. And I'm like, no, more revenue will cause more chaos because
Right.
you're not keeping any of it. We have to systematically protect what you're keeping first, right? And so what I'm hearing is don't think about buying another firm because you think you need more revenue to solve your problems. If you're looking to buy another firm to solve a problem, you're probably looking for the wrong reasons. You really have to make sure that your current practice is solid, it is systematically producing profits, and the things are getting done without you because another firm is going to pull more of your attention and time and energy as well.
Yeah, bigger is always more challenging, right? You're going to consume potentially additional team, staff, clients, referral sources, marketing, all those things. I used to really say to potential buyers, Chelsea, you almost want to feel like you're stronger than the firm you're acquiring, right? Like your systems. Otherwise, and that's not always the case. Like that firm may have a bigger, better brand, right? That firm, of course, could be bigger financially and everything else. But you really want to feel like, okay, I'm in a place where I know we do things really well, and we can go in and there's actually improvement that we're going to have by bringing over this revenues, right? Like this firm may be at a 10% margin. We're running at a 25, 30% margin. Once we migrate, like this is going to be great, right? We're going to make money and kind of carry this forward because we believe we're best in class or on our way to do that. So yes, you're exactly right. If you get to that point first, do a little health check inside your firm and just make sure you're at a place that you could really stomach it. Because buying gets exciting. I mean, doubling revenues, making twice the money, you can leverage it with getting loans and really make it successful. We have firms do that all the time, but you got to have the time and you got to have the health in your own firm and lifestyle to be able to do it.
Yeah, agreed. Yep. And then you talked about what to buy. So we said when to buy. I love that. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. Then you kind of went into what to buy. And what I heard was look for that low hanging fruit, right? Like don't try to master a whole nother craft when you already have this one mastered. And I got to be honest, this is a very affirming conversation for me because I'm at the point where my company is such a well-oiled machine. I mean, I'm an accountant, I'm type A, I'm a systems freak. Like we live in Asana and our SOPs are everywhere and they're living, breathing, they get updated on the spot. Like anybody could sit down in one of my team positions and open up our Asana and be like, okay, I need to do this, and here are the steps and all the things. So my business and my team has helped me create something that has really allowed me to focus on acquiring a tax and accounting firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you're listening to this and you know someone in Charlotte, North Carolina that owns a tax and accounting firm and wants to get out, let me know. But I'm looking for those strategic acquisitions, right? Because we have this really great, systematic, proven framework. And I'm looking for opportunities because you said be bigger and better than the one you're acquiring. I'm looking for a firm where I can take everything that we've successfully done and layer
Yep.
it into this new practice and merge teams and get everybody on the same page. So this is like really good for me to hear too. I'm in my mind, I'm like, yes, yes, I'm looking at the right things.
Yeah, you're doing it the right way. And I think there's always going to be, again, going back to nothing's ever going to be perfect. Doesn't mean your firm runs perfect before you buy or anything else. There's lots of things you can pick up as far as knowledge from acquiring. I mean, we've had lots of buyers that are pretty good, But when they acquire, they're like, oh man, we need to roll this out to like what they were doing. We're rolling this out to like all of our offices, right? Because like this is really
Yeah.
cool. And then they expand that value. But it is. And it really goes down to once you build out that business and you focus on the business, then expanding it becomes easier through acquisition. And that's what I mean, right, Chelsea, you're going and saying it's not that after you get off this, you're running from here to there to anywhere else. You've got a team, you've got systems, it runs that way. As you grow, and if you grow overnight by doubling revenue or 50% revenue, your systems will at some point hit a ceiling and have to be tweaked and braked, and you'll have to bring on new people and everything else. But it's part of that really, kind of planned growth versus chaotic growth, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and the other part too, and I know you're looking at, accounting firms and CPA firms, you know, in law firm world, if you're a buyer or a seller, just plan on transition. Meaning we tell everybody it's a baton pass, it's not a throw of the keys. And I think accounting practices work the same way for the most part, right? And if you've built a strong referral firm, where you get a lot of network and community referrals or otherwise, plan on sticking around as the goodwill ambassador. That's what I tell everybody. But it's a pretty cool role, right? You don't have to maybe do all the legal work and manage the firm and approve payroll and everything else you may have been doing as a solo. But you need to stick around to introduce, maybe still go to some of the networking stuff, otherwise kind of transition and preserve that value that you've built. And if you're a buyer, which is what we were talking about, that's what you want. And the failures that we have seen have been usually buyers who feel too overly confident about their own firm brand, everything else, and really dismiss any transition plan that the seller would provide,
Mm.
right? So they're more of like, we're just going to send letters, then we'll just bring everybody, it'll be fine, right? The best ones we have, like we have an estate planning group out in on the West Coast that acquires smaller suburban estate planning, and when they go in, they do a big open house and they welcome everybody in, which is, they've got some of the new people, they've got the selling and kind of retiring attorneys, they got the team. Like it's a big, exciting event about how this has come together. And we're so excited to continue to work with you and transition and go from there. That works on transition and makes everybody happy, clients not afraid, all of those other things, versus just sending a letter to say so and so has sold their practice and now you're working with this one, right?
Yeah, I think it's really important to almost go into, and I'm speaking to my own situation again, but going into an acquisition as a student, and giving it time, because nobody likes anybody who comes in and is like, well, ours is better than yours. We're going to change all these things, and if you don't like it, then you can go somewhere else. But I really have the understanding that this is going to be more successful if I come in as a student. I want to learn everything you're already doing, the way that you're doing it. I don't want to change a thing until I really understand what you're doing. And then, even when that time comes, it's going to be a collaborative brainstorm session, right? Because, like you said, you never know what nuggets are in this other firm that you're purchasing. They may have something that you're actually like, oh, actually, that with a little bit of a tweak is going to be better than what I'm currently doing. And
Right.
especially like in my situation too, the owner wants to stay a year or three on average to just transition out, make a little extra income towards retirement. And that kind of, and it is the same in the legal space, and that kind of lends itself to like seller financing and holdback percentages. So
Mhm.
talk about the how to buy and what options, because I think there's always more options and opportunities than law firm owners think in this world. So, what about the how to buy?
Yep. The how to buy, the first is, have your strategic plan, the why, right? That you're going to go into it of what you're looking for, everything else. And then it's really finding, once you find that good opportunity, it's the structures that are available, right? And there are lots of what I'll call buy structures that we deploy and that the market deploys on that. Some of those are as simple as in the legal world of counsel. So, if you're out there and you find this attorney who's looking for their retirement, their succession plan, and maybe it's the attorney and one paralegal, right? Kind of, they've been doing this for a while. They've got $500,000 of revenue, and they're really just looking for, succession, right? Like they want to continue, to your point, Chelsea, with the accountants. Maybe they want to kind of fade out, but still work part-time on some things. Well, overall, the easiest transaction on that is just to really bring them on as an of counsel. I mean, truly, bring them on of counsel, structure a deal where there's the financial, payout over time if that book continues, right? After they're done being Goodwill ambassador or as part of that, right? So if the referrals continue, if the website or phone numbers keep giving, if, the clients keep coming back, and that's the way I think a lot of accounting practices are structured too, is, that can be a percentage paid. And so really a lot of those come around the fit, right? This retiring attorney is looking for somebody to preserve their legacy. If you're an upstanding, run a good law firm, otherwise, they feel more confident, comfortable, right? That you're going to take care of their community, their referral sources, their clients, whatever it is. And maybe you're going to keep that person employed who's probably been with them for a long time and the retirement, timelines don't always match up because that's a big driver for a lot of our sellers. They come for exit, but they've got team that, they want to keep employed and the buyers usually do too. But the of counsel is probably the most simple. Then you get into all sorts of mergers, or you can get into equity purchase or true business purchase. And those, have different transactional structures, but on a concept, some of those are purchased for very little cash down. I think this is kind of where you're going, Chelsea, is just, you can go and it's like, do I have to have a bunch of cash? You want to have enough cash, working with good CFO advisors, everything else for working capital, everything else to make it work from a budget perspective. But the sellers aren't always looking for like a big check 100% at closing. We do very few of those deals,
Not a
right?
good tax situation for them.
No, not a good tax situation. Usually there's some transition. There's like referral sources that need to do that. So there's a balancing of risk in payment structure, right? So a lot of times we say on the easiest, maybe you see a value of a practice, let's call it $1 million, and maybe 50% is committed and 50% is performance based, which means, well, when we see the revenues continue, right, by the seller helping be that goodwill ambassador and everything else, we'll pay on them. But we're concerned because so many of those are tied to, the seller personally, right? Or there's a risk balance there. So a lot of it is we do see some bank financing, of course, come in. Some deals have more, right? Meaning you as a buyer are going to go get an SBA loan, go get a traditional bank loan, anything else. But sellers are willing to finance, right? Meaning the seller will operate as the bank. Sometimes from a tax perspective, that can work out a lot better for them, right? To kind of defer that over time. And then we have a lot of what I'll call performance. Sometimes it's called an earnout, sometimes it's called something else. But overall, it's basically as a concept, if the revenues continue, I'll pay you. If the revenues don't continue, I may pay you less, right? If the revenues skyrocket, I may pay you more. And that's the coolest part sometimes on these performance tiers is we actually see sellers who have way too much work to do, like way too much. And when they line with a bigger firm that has more bandwidth and resources and everything else, you actually see revenues go up. And that's a really cool thing because it's a win-win for both. For
Mhm.
seller, they're going to maximize their payout by unlocking some of that revenue. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't take on the referrals, the client work. Now they can because they're part of a bigger group. And for the buyer, they're happy to do it because, of course, it's really getting to that point of unlocking that revenue that was kind of bottled up. So we see a lot of, flexible structures in the market depending on the practice, right? The bigger firms, right, are going to be more cash down. That's going to be bank finance, right? The ones that have their systems, their IP, their financials all on the line dictate better terms. So if you want one of those premium firms, you just got to be ready to, go out and make sure you can finance it, fund it, go through that aspect. But if you're looking at small firms, it really comes down to fit. Like, does the seller and the buyer, can they see that right legacy fit, cultural fit, otherwise to preserve what the seller's built? Chelsea, you were talking about that of keeping on the seller, like pro tip, weekly meetings with the seller, right? Between seller and buyer are so great to just kind of go through that and you learn. You said you're going to be at, this is going to be an education. Like they're sitting there sharing, and they're also probably saying, well, I don't know why you're changing this. So you can share too and kind of make sure you calm and resolve those different aspects. But a lot of the small firm opportunities are if you can paint the picture of how to preserve the legacy, the terms become very flexible, right? They just do because a lot of these sellers are looking for preservation and good fit actually over financial outcome.
Mm. I appreciate everything. And, we started this conversation by kind of saying, You get what you see. So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. And you're going to look for proof supporting whichever one of those that you truly believe and you hear in your mind. And so I think that this conversation has done a really good job of proving to people listening that there are more options and opportunities than you think. I just know that if you've listened to this point, the end of this episode, you've heard some things that really, really have your wheels turning. And you're like, you know what? Maybe yes. Maybe this could be, and maybe I need to go enroll in Chelsea's fractional CFO programs and go talk to Tom. So, Tom, how do you help people achieve all of this?
Absolutely. So we at the Law Practice Exchange, so you can go to the lawpracticeexchange.com. Essentially, we run the marketplace for buying and selling law firms, which we like to joke it's our Zillow for law firms. So if you're looking to buy or you're looking to sell, you can come and join us at the lawpracticeexchange.com. Join the marketplace, right? Confidentially search, match everything. I think, Chelsea, we had talked before about you're kind of in your own marketplace looking for accounting and CPA practices. But that's our way of really, broadening opportunities, bringing more, to that like-minded buyers and sellers to hopefully make matches, hopefully preserve legacies, grow through acquisition. And then our Law Practice Exchange advisory really sits on top to help buyers and sellers through every step. So we're there to help you on a full valuation to know what a true market value, right? We're there to help with due diligence, with transition plan. We've been through it before with many, 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 many attorneys over the years. And so our goal on the advisory side is to be either your fractional, intermediary advisor, broker, or for some of the larger firms, it's full white glove, right? To really keep them in private market, find that. So we help firms as small as a couple 100,000 find that maybe good of counsel relationship, up to last year we closed a $50 million revenue, plaintiff practice. So the overall goal is to have tools and knowledge to help you as a buyer or seller in that space really find that right opportunity, develop it the right way, work with good advisors along the path to do so. And hopefully, if it's part of your growth plan for acquisition, let's go out and do it. If it's part of your, I want to exit this practice for, value or legacy or succession, we're there for you.
Yes. So at this point of the conversation, every single person listening should look at our links to in the show notes. We're going to have all of the resources that Tom mentioned, including that really nifty, simple initial valuation calculator, which I love. And Tom, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on. This has been great.
Absolutely, Chelsea. Anytime, appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the CSG Law Firm Podcast. If today's conversation sparks something for you, an idea, a challenge, or even a little discomfort, that's exactly the point. We're here to rethink the way law firm owners approach money, leadership, and growth. If you're ready to dive deeper, connect with me and my team and learn more about Core Solutions Group and what we do, head on over to our website in the show notes, yourcoresolution.com. Because sometimes all it takes is a fresh perspective and the right people in your corner. Until next time, keep building with intention, lead with clarity, and remember, the numbers tell the story, but you get to write the next chapter.